right, time now for Front and Center. Today I don't have the Gumzo Kengele, so we are in session, and with me in studio I have three gentlemen. I have another gentleman joining us virtually, and he's joining us from Naivasha. But let me begin with the guests I have in studio. We have Chege Mora, who is not only the MCA for Ngara Ward, he's also the Secretary General, County Assemblies Forum. Thank you for taking the time to join us tonight. We have another MCA in the building, this time for Kileleshwa, Robert Alai. Happy to have you in studio as well. We have Kevin Osido, who is the ED, Executive Director, County Governance Watch. Did I get it right?
They're using MCAs and now they're just calling me ED.
ED. Next time no, executive.
Maybe
executive.
Next time it will be governor.
Executive. Oh, we hope for the best. Executive Director, County Governance Watch. And I hope if that happens, you don't stop picking my calls. No, and joining us, as I mentioned virtually, we have Dr. Conrad Bosire. He is an expert on multi-level governance issues to do with federalism, devolution. This is the man you want to talk to, and we have him here with us. So I will begin with Mheshimiwa Alai, because the other day, on a day that also happened to be World Press Freedom Day, which was May the 3rd, we had MCAs congregate at the Kenyatta International Convention Center. There was some drama about a PS addressing you. We saw you try to calm the situation. You were asked to step down from the podium. What was happening? What was happening there?
Thank you, Olive. I think basically what happened is that we congregated as MCAs from all over the parts of country, apart from I think one county assembly or two, Elgeyo Marakwet, and I think another one, who came. Some of them came like the All House. Some of them even, were able to come in as the whole assembly plus the speakers, and it was their plight. A lot of issues, a lot of issues, from the salaries to the facilitation for the wards, to the ward development fund, financial autonomy of the assemblies, and so on. There's a lot of disparities there, and basically the members of the county assemblies were asking for, to be enabled to properly anchor devolution. These are the people you expect to hold governors to account, to oversight or represent, to even make the budgets which are going to run the various counties, from Nairobi to the smallest, Tana River, I don't know, which one is the smallest, Mheshimiwa? Yeah, so I think we came from all over the country and we congregated here on initiative, and we said that we think that MCAs need an MCA-only platform. Yeah, so that one has been a challenge, and so this was going to be the first of its kind, MCAs for MCAs. All right, so this was, you said this was the first national congress of the MCAs. Of the MCAs. MCAs only. MCAs only. Yes. All right, it's 10 years since we went down this devolution road. What's your response to what Alai is submitting, and that is an MCAs only organization?
Well, thanks, Olive, again for having us here. What I would say is that, there are a raft of issues that bedevil devolution, especially when it comes to assemblies. We feel that there is a systemic, dysfunctioning of how assemblies are supposed to be run. And so that precipitated members to feel that the issues are also not well articulated. At County Assemblies Forum, which is maybe a more structured approach that has been there, where I serve, is that we have delved in those matters more, the approach that is more, they call it diplomatic a bit. But, we've gone to these offices, we've raised the issues, but then again, there was also a clamor that members felt maybe we are not shouting enough. Maybe we are not there sticking out and raising those issues that are specifically for MCAs. And that's why the meeting happened. Having said that, the issues that were raised then, the issues that we've been raising are the same. Maybe the routes could be different, but it's MCAs for MCAs. For me, it's the bigger goal of the whole county, the whole county legislative actors to help settle devolution in the way it's supposed to be. So the issues that were raised at the KICC, the issues we are raising are the same, and we keep on moving like that. But of course, there are always hiccups here and there. But the most important thing is that what is important is that devolution ought to work. And anyone who is trying to push it in that direction, however, we might disagree on the route, but at least it's trying to take us further. No, the new constitution, everyone believes that devolution was the icing of the cake. It has done tremendous things, both in city counties and even in the rural ones. But more needs to be done, especially when it comes to safeguarding the gains and the others that could come using the legislative actors.
But what do you say to what Robert is raising, which is MCAs are not feeling, if I understood you correctly, adequately represented by the County Assemblies Forum? And I raise this because they had a raft of resolutions, and one of the things they threatened to do was to stop remitting dues to the County Assemblies Forum. Have you sat down with these MCAs, found out how can we, I mean, at least engage them on how to make them feel more a part of the whole? Yeah,
thanks. I think I should have started by saying how CAF works. CAF is an institution that envisages to take care of all the 2,237 members countrywide. That's a 1,450 plus the balance of about 800 who are nominated. That's one. Two, the 47 county assemblies. So everyone is a member of CAF if you are in the county assembly or you're an MC. Secondly, of the 2,237, there is a governing council. That's 2 members plus a speaker. That gives us about 141 members countrywide. And then there are also chapters, leadership chapters, and also special interest group chapters, the PWDs, women, and the youth. So all that gives us 150. And then from there, we get a smaller team, or which is called an executive committee. And that's how it became we are voted there. So ideally, every county assembly has its representatives. We have no control of who Nairobi sends or who Lamu wants to send in the governing council. We also have no control on how the feedback and the feed forward is supposed to happen. So I understand when members feel maybe we are not saying the same, or we are not, as vocal in the counties as possible. Secondly, and more importantly, is our mandate. Our mandate is to advocate issues of common issues and voicing them. Number two, of course, members' terms and all that. Now, the issues like salaries, PACs are also very sensitive because of where the economy is. So we felt that engaging SIC directly, you know why you pick it? You pick it so that you're brought to the table. So if you get to the table, then there's no point of going and rabble-rousing. So we've raised those issues. We've been heard. The last circular that SRC did, we challenged it. They asked us to ask for a review and give them a different job description, because you can shout as much as you can, but at the end of the day, it's a document that is going to be, going to be scientifically be looked at, to be evaluated for you to be graded or regraded. So the push for me, and I take it, by the way, very positively, was to, make Olivier and your crew understand, hey, we are here, But at the end of the day, the backroom staff of the documentation, the negotiations needed to happen. I mean, and it's not only here. You never see doctors or teachers, first and foremost is the document route. Once the CBAs, the collective bargaining agreements, are not working, then you can see people picketing. So it's the same thing. Again, we came into office in December. We've been barely there for about 4 months. So it's also a stretch. I understand. I'm also a member. It's also a stretch to have done all these things within that short period of time. But there's a lot of progress to that direction. But again, let me emphasize that for me, the issue is not about the sibling rivalry, so to speak. For me is, what are these issues and how are they benefiting cumulatively to the Mwananchi and to the growth of devolution? Okay. Because at the end of the day, if you were to be well remunerated, so that what happens? So that, of course, you're able to oversight and check government well, so that activities and oversight can happen to the executive, so that Mwananchi can get the benefits of devolution.
All right, and when we get into the details now, and I'll give you an opportunity to respond to what Mheshimiwa Shegemora has said in terms of they don't tell counties who to send as representatives, but some of these issues you've highlighted and which we will look at shortly need to happen within a structured sort of space. Yeah. So what does that then mean? And I know this you said is really not about a sibling rivalry, but if you have some of your constituents are not happy. Yes. What hope then do you have of articulating some of these issues as a unit? But let me take a look at the clock. We still have a few minutes before 10, so before I have to take a break. Some of the issues you highlighted or you raised, giving, was it 14 days, 14-day ultimatum? You want your salaries tripled from 140.
We want our salaries reviewed.
Reviewed.
We didn't say tripled.
I saw somewhere you wanted them tripled to 400,000. No. From I have those figures with me. We'll pull up those graphics shortly on the other side of the break.
Where it should be. But you wanted them reviewed.
Reviewed. You want the plenary allowance reinstated. You want the 30% tax on the car facility.
Double taxation.
Refunded?
Yeah, basically double taxation.
Okay.
If you give me allowance for buying the car, why do you tax me while the seller of the car is going to tax me too? Okay. It's going to, charge me on the tax on behalf of KRA. And if you give me 5,000 for airtime, I'm taxed. I'm supposed to pay tax to KRA, but also while buying the airtime, it's already taxed.
Okay. Yeah. All right. The other issue was Ward Development Fund, Affirmative Action Fund for nominated MCAs. Okay, I'll have the full list because I have it ready for you on the other side of this break. And then we'll engage the governance experts in the room. That is Dr. Conrad Bosire as well as Kevin Osido here and what they make of these demands. And is 14 days realistic? Because you'd have to engage salary reviews, SRC. Ward Development Fund, you will tell us on the other side of this break.
With Molfix pants, changing diapers is now very easy. I tear and take off the used Molfix pants and pull the new one up in a moment. Wrap up the used diaper and throw it away. Come on, mothers, try Molfix baby pants and be part of our happiness movement. Oh, yeah.
Friends becoming family. Home-cooked meal, ice-cold Coke. That's the recipe for magic. Make your mealtime more magical. Buy any participating pack. Check under the cap to get your code and stand a chance to win free food shopping for a year, plus millions in instant cash, airtime and shopping vouchers.
Hata Wajakoya alikuwa na lookalike before the elections, but immediately after kulienda vile ilienda, huyo lookalike alianza kutafuta job ya kufanana na Rick Ross.
And you see, in aviation we don't have room for errors. So if I am saying alpha, it has to be alpha.
Inamaanisha kwa aviation, A for apple, you leave at the door.
A for apple, yes.
Ndege ni yako lakini airspace sio yako.
Hata kama nitainuka tu juu ya nyumba kidogo, like
hiyo ni airspace yetu.
If you can see traffic, yes, like you can't be on the plane. Only see Simon, as in.
No. The thing is, no. From a pilot perspective, yes, we don't like seeing other planes.
We are calling you to be part and parcel of the fastest growing satellite town in this city. We are developing and building a beautiful Achievers Gate. This is a chance that you cannot afford to miss. Call this number 0790 300 300.
Okay. All right. Before I turn to my specialists in the area of county governance issues. Let's take a look at some of those demands which we touched on with Robert Alai before we took the break, and there we go. He says tripling of salary to 400,000 shillings. He will explain what the fine print there is. War Development Fund pegged at 20% county development budget. That, he tells me, was amended at the forum to 40%. County Affirmative Action Fund for nominated members, reinstatement of plenary allowance, and a refund of 30% tax on car reimbursement. Let's also take a look at the role of your MCA according to Article 185 of the Constitution of Kenya, making county laws. Oversight over county executive organs may receive and approve plans, policies for management, exploitation of county resources, development, management of infrastructure and institutions. That's the Constitution. I haven't had a chance to look at the Public Finance Management Act, but we do have a legal expert. I was told there are no legal experts, but we have a legal mind joining us, and he's joining us virtually, and that is Dr. Conrad Bosire. You take a keen interest on issues to do with devolution. Just generally, before we get into the specifics, what do you make of those demands listed there?
Hello, Olive. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, very well. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, I think the demands by the MCAs, as laid out by Honorable Lai, I mean, they are not new. After every election, the new group that comes in, and we have also seen it with the MPs, with the SRC, when their allowances are also cut. So it is something that is expected from our leaders after the election. A fresh new set of demands, and which come with every fresh election. It's just that this time it's a bit different, because what is new is that the County Assemblies Forum, that we've always known to be representing the honorable members of the county assemblies, is now there's some sort of can I call it a breakup, or now we're hearing MCAs for MCAs, because the CAF has always represented the speakers, the honorable members. So that's new in terms of agitation for this. I thought even after these demands, CAF, which has always represented members, would be the forum, and that even the differences and perceptions of how it represents it well could be dealt with. But then that's what we have. In terms of the nature of the demands, obviously, and you pointed it out earlier, Olive, we are in May. The government, the end of the year is next. We just have 2 months, and even for the budget that is coming for the next year, starting from July, the budgeting process is almost at the tail end. So we'll see how this happens, and we all know the financial pressures the government is facing, trying to reduce the deficit in budgeting and financing, and all this. So it will be interesting to see how these demands are handled. But I believe these would have been more the force when the county assembly family, together with all the structures represented in CAF, spoke in one voice on all these demands. And of course, there would be a negotiation with the National Treasury, the SRC, and other concerned agencies, so that they reach a compromise on this. Maybe as a starting remarks, I could say that. Thank you.
Okay. Kevin, what do you make of the list of demands? Because I don't see it happening in 14 days. How realistic a deadline is that? Because now we're already on day what? That was the third. Alai, we're on day what?
Why
let me check my calendar. No, I'm not being pessimistic, because when I look at that list of demands, it would require different players to come in. But let me not put words in your mouth, Kevin. Your thoughts?
I'm sorry to say this to my very good friends, but those demands are really far-fetched. Considering the political economy, if you look at the context within which Kenyans are operating in right now, cost of living issues, the government is almost engaging in austerity measures, particularly to want to generate revenue or look for money to pay for debts. And when I say government, it means national government, because now we have 48 governments, one national government and then the 47 county governments. But all these fundings come from the national government. So I think for me, these calls, as Dr. Rui says, are not new. But then the expectation is, how do you want to navigate within all these other challenging environments and contexts against the functions of MCAs? Because by constitution, so by law, and even expectation of Kenyans is that the MCA is a person who will go and get things done. But then the constitution basically puts you in a box and says that you cannot be able to implement or agitate for any other resources other than exercising oversight and appropriating that budget. So for me, among all these demands, one that probably would call for review is maybe the allowances, particularly the car loan and transport reimbursement, which then I think is a conversation that, as we also engage in tax discussions right now as a country, CAF on behalf of MCAs would actually take this to the relevant agencies to be able to make it as a recommendation that you cannot be able to double tax MCAs for you to meet your tax obligations or tax demands. But other issues, I think, may not see light of day. And that is really because if you talk about levels of engagement, I think that there are opportunities for conversations and dialogue, and that is right at SRC, CRA, CAF itself. I don't see MCAs for MCAs going very far, because anybody they want to be able to engage will ask them, so who is speaking for you? So even among MCAs for MCAs, they will have to generate a mechanism to engage, because nobody can be able to engage all the 2,000 plus MCAs. There has to be a mechanism of sitting around a table, because even here, if you are to invite over 2,000 people, it might not work. And so that mechanism, in my view, which perennially has been largely accepted within devolution circles, is the CAF, County Assemblies Forum. So you talk about legislative summits, MCAs don't speak for themselves. It is CAF that speaks on behalf of MCAs. You go to the devolution conferences, it is CAF actually that represents MCAs. And even at the devolution donor roundtables, in case CAF has, in case MCAs have issues that they would seek for partnership conversations or negotiations, it is normally CAF. But I think that maybe there is some bit of discomfort in the manner in which CAF has played itself in terms of representing MCAs and their issues. Hence now the clamor and the desire to want to have another mechanism to engage. But I think if we were to be very honest among ourselves as Kenyans, MCAs and devolution lovers, I don't think that even in the eyes of Kenyans, the calls by MCAs will meet light of day.
Olive.
Yes, Robert.
I would ask this, that next time if you call such a forum, please call forums who, bring experts who have actually reviewed the substance of the argument. Because you know what they are trying to do? They're using their emotions to respond. And they're not querying what you are actually asking for.
Can I query?
Listen, yeah. So what you are demanding is actually 90% for Kenyans. It's not for individual MCAs. If you tell me today to have 18,000 to rent an office in Kileleshwa, tell me where in Kileleshwa I'm going to rent an office for a maximum rent per month of 18,000. Where even a bedsitter cannot cost even 20,000. You see, the MCA I've replaced worked there for 15 years. He doesn't even know where the office is. He has never stepped into the office because it was opened in a dingy place somewhere where if he steps in today, 500 people will be surrounding him. If today you tell me to go and oversight the governor or the county executive member, the governor earns close to $1 million. The county executive member earns 450,000 and above. The salary of the MCA is less than even the salary of the committee clerk. Even the salary of the committee clerk. How, this is my park chairman. Appropriate, ask him the kind of situation we are in. You have left devolution at the mercy of the executive leaders of the counties. You have left, you know, the challenge you have with CAF was a very appropriate forum for us. The challenge we have is that since CAF was started, you know, the review has been happening, but it has been to the favor of the speakers. You know, the salaries of the speakers are going up, the salaries of the members, they say, you know, this is the salary of the MCAs, 86,000 basic. Then you're given house allowance of 45,000. Then you're given market adjustment of 12,750, a maximum of salary of 144,000.
Have we found those graphics? I had those figures.
Yes.
I had those figures.
Yeah, you see, when we say that, please give us what development fund. You see? What development fund? And you make you give financial autonomy to the county assemblies. Today, the person who decides my salary is the governor. If I oversight the governor in a manner he doesn't like, you saw in Embu, the governor decided to withhold the salaries of the MCAs until they played ball. You are oversighting somebody who is actually deciding when you will be paid. Alfred Mutua tried it in Machakos. If you do that, are you not sabotaging devolution? If today you tell me that demanding 40% for ward development, whatever you'll call it, ward development fund, ward-based fund, whatever, you know, the governor now decides which ward he should favor based on what relationship he has here. But if you entrench it on the law, he is obligated to ensure that every ward gets equal allocation. You see, the challenge we have is that probably county assemblies or the counties need to have their own special, you know, commission, like the Parliamentary Service Commission, you know, County Assemblies Service Commission or County Service Commission. Because the disparities, the salary of the member of county MCA is less than even the county of the deputy directors in the counties. How am I going to review? How am I going to oversight? How am I going to make the budget if you don't give me conditions? So you know what the members of the county assemblies do all the time here? They look for ways of cutting the deals. You know, they look for ways of befriending the governor to ensure that, you know, they get something in their pocket. They look for ways of traveling outside the country all the time. This is the benchmarking, you know, whatever we try to call them. But at least at Kienda Inje, if he goes to Dubai for a few days, he gets $1 million. You know, he comes back but what are you doing to devolution?
Okay.
So these things we are requesting, we are asking for, we can keep quiet. Who will suffer? It is the members who are saying this. You know, how many are the MCAs?
We've been told 2,237.
So 2,237. You've just added a budget to the office of the president. You've added more CASs. You know, there are all these clamors. The president is trying, I'm very impressed, the president is trying to collect more revenue. When you're collecting more revenue, ensure that you empower the MCAs more. Because if you don't do it, it is not the MCAs who will suffer. I'm telling you, this seat is more important. In fact, if I was the government, if I was in the situation of SRC, I'll tell them to do something else, but let the review come to the county assemblies, you know, through the commission. But like Nairobi, you can even make it that the salaries of the MCAs come from the own revenue.
All right. So I will give you a right of reply, Kevin, but I did say I have the salary structure available for us to take a look at, and I have those graphics now. And this is what it is. The basic salary is this, if we could put it up on the screen. 86,625, housing allowance of 45,000 shillings, salary market adjustment of 12,750, which comes to, let's take a look at the gross figure, 144, if we could, please. All right, we are loading. We're loading those graphics.
Can I speak to your figures a bit?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. You see that 86,000, because I was there in the last term. We were starting from 123 that was graduating on the 5th year to 165. as basic. And you know your basic is what determines if you are to get a loan and all, and your gratuity is based on the basic. Now, what arithmetic happened 10 years after that the basic moves from 165 to 86?
But let me ask you this. Let me ask if you'll allow me. This is your second term.
Yes.
It's your second term that you're serving. Third term. In fact, you were acting speaker, I think, taking over. You took over from Elachi.
Yeah.
When you applied for the job, you knew. You knew that it is imeletwa chini, iko 86, ulijua plenary.
I'll speak to it.
Iko hapo.
I'll speak to it. And I want us to have, let's not zero down the discussion to about figures. Let us talk about the whole devolution thing. As my colleague is talking about.
I'm not the one who has boiled it down to figures. You guys are the ones who are giving us figures.
I was giving you figures to make a point that it is not known anywhere where figures go down, especially for basic. But now back to when documents were done. The circular that comes from SRC, and you can check, came in July, 2 weeks to the elections. I mean, the razzmatazz that is happening at the country when people are looking for votes is something else. But be that as it may, that is not important. What is important, and I want to refer you to Article 230, and a governance expert is here. Article 230 that gives life to SRC talks, or I think Article 5, sub-Article 5 of 230 talks about the principle that they look into. Number one is to attract and retain competency. Number two is to recognize productivity and performance. 3, transparency and fairness, of course, in the fiscal sustainability that is available. Now, this guy is an ICT expert. We have an ICT committee in Nairobi that also, and you know nowadays Nairobi does its payment in digital, on a digital platform. So if there are issues to be raised, you benefit from his specialized skill in that committee to be able to achieve that. If you're not able now to attract more people, more competent people to be in the counties, then who's going to suffer? Because now everything is platform. The platform of Nairobi is the same. I mean, it's a new thing, but the revenues we are collecting are not what we were collecting 10 years ago. You get the point? I mean, the guys with the receipts were still doing better than the digital people. So it doesn't make sense. So at what point, and when it comes to oversight, 10 years after, when Kidero left, we were doing, I think, 12 billion in terms of on-source revenue. Right now, we are doing 8 billion. You know what I mean? So,
and we have digitized.
And you have digitized, and we have more brighter people, and there is no kind. You know what I mean? So that, for me, is a bigger discussion. The budget of Nairobi is 39 billion. 30% of that is development, which is 13 billion. Sawa. The budget for county assembly, all those things you hate, travel, everything, is 1.3. 1.3 billion. Now, Nairobi is not able to absorb 40% of its development budget. In fact, I think this year is going to be about 15%. Sawa. So you are losing the development budget, which would be maybe 6, 7, 8 billion directly to development, because when I came here, you have very good security guys ensuring, because of the kind of investment NTV has put. So it looks like the country is not very serious with the investment that is put to the counties. So you put that to Ochi that, sleeps, when you switch off his light, he also sleeps, until when you wake up at 6, he also wakes up. So if you are serious about devolution, if you're serious about oversighting, then that needs to be looked at. If that means lower salary or more, then that discussion, that's why I don't want this discussion to be figures. If you feel that 10K is better than what we are talking about, so be it. But who at the end of the day loses? You get the point? Today, you go to any shags, things have changed in terms of there's some bureaucracy of some sort, there's some sprucing up of small towns. The county government in its own way is working. The ECDs, whatever, there's some activities that is happening that was not there before devolution. So now we need to increase that. And we are talking about just with the 15% that comes from exchequer. Of course, for Nairobi, they're supposed even to be doing more, which we are not. In the counties, none, and you can check all the 47 counties, none has been able to attain what they found 10 years before. Why? You get the point? Are we not supposed to be incentivizing people to oversight more so that we can get more, so that we stop relying more on national government and be able to do these things at a local level. And that will only be possible if we are able to attract, retain competent, skillful people who will come to the counties and who will be able to get this job done. If that is not possible, it's fine. You will say, oh, they knew. Yeah, we knew. Yeah, but we would want it better so that when we're leaving, because we'll not be there forever, we feel that the next crop of people are able to take on government and to be able to service better services for the Mwananchi.
All right, Kevin, I promised you right of reply immediately on the other side of this break. We'll hear Kevin because Ali said we should not be emotional about this conversation. He says there's money for the presidency, so they are not buying the argument that the coffers are empty on the other side of this break.
Oh, you're here.
Friends becoming family. Home-cooked meal, ice-cold Coke. That's the recipe for magic. Make your mealtime more magical. Buy any participating pack. Check under the cap to get your code and stand a chance to win free food shopping for a year, plus millions in instant cash, airtime and shopping vouchers.
Hata Wajakoya alikuwa na lookalike before the elections, but immediately after kulienda vile ilienda, huyo lookalike alianza kutafuta job ya kufanana na Rick Ross.
And you see, in aviation we don't have room for errors. So if I am saying alpha, it has to be alpha.
Inamaanisha kwa aviation, A for apple you leave at the door.
A for apple, yes.
Ndege ni yako lakini airspace sio yako.
Hata kama nitainuka tu juu ya nyumba kidogo, like
hiyo ni airspace yetu.
If you can see traffic,
yes,
like
yes.
You can't be on the plane. As in
now the thing is, now from a pilot perspective,
yes.
We don't like seeing other planes.
We are calling you to be part and parcel of the fastest growing satellite town in this city. We are developing and building a beautiful Achievers Gate. This is a chance that you cannot afford to miss. Call this number 0790 300 300.
Team Omanyala only on NTV.
Wase Team Omanyala hapa.
Na kwa wale ambao ni mashabiki wa Omanyala kama mimi, tarehe 13 tutazame hapa NTV for Kip Keino Classic.
Watch the chase for glory. The ABSA Kip Keino Classic Continental Tour. 13th of May, live on NTV.
All right, welcome back to Front and Center. I want to remind you that we do have, as part of our panel this evening, Dr. Conrad Bosire. And after we hear from Kevin, as promised, Dr. Bosire, I will pose the question to you that where CDF is concerned, there have been a lot of landmines, which led to its labeling as NG CDF. So with the War Development Fund, do we risk diluting that separation of powers between the county executive and the county assembly? But before we hear from you, right of reply, Kevin.
You see, the beauty about this conversation is that my friends will raise the issues as MCAs and then find responses as Kenyan citizens. That's the beauty about it. So much that for me, when you begin a conversation and bring in on-source revenue, that is really where the response lies, because county governments have not been able to do very well insofar as generating their own revenue is concerned. And if you look at the analysis and some of the work that has been done behind this, largely, let me say, blame in inverted commas, quote unquote, goes to the county assemblies. And where do you put that? You put that in terms of, one is oversight, so issues around corruption and how counties are dealing with mechanisms or avenues for pilferage of resources, the kind of laws that are being put in place to be able to support on-source revenue generation. Because you need, for example, there's at the national level right now, there's a big conversation around taxation. But even at the county governments, counties are levying taxes on citizens. You don't see this kind of very vigorous, vibrant conversation happening between MCAs or county assemblies and citizens based on issues around levies and taxes. The third issue for me is, even as Allah talks about emotions, and now this is very emotive, is a question of performance. Can we be able to also juxtapose the demands or these issues that are being raised and the performance of MCAs? And we've tried as an organization through what is called the County Governance Index, which assesses performance of counties on issues around service delivery, legislation or laws, basically the functions of county assemblies and all that. And over 75% of county assemblies are not meeting, the threshold of expectations of their roles and functions, bordering on largely oversight that are being enacted at the assembly. The performance is not exciting. Sorry if maybe I can say that. Further to that, you look at attendance of some of the assembly meetings or sessions when critical conversations around service delivery, budgeting process are taking place. In a number of the meetings, even up to the committee level, quorum is never met. And it's not that citizens don't know about these issues. So when you come and begin to ask about even per diems, allowance for committees, the citizens will also be asking, but yes, you want more money, and what are you giving us against this? So I think for me, if MCAs in all these conversations can narrow it down to what are we giving to the citizens, and therefore what are we getting? And that's largely part of the reasons why the kind of doors that are seemingly being knocked by MCAs through CAF or CAF are probably perennial. So you talk about 2014 when we began devolution all the way, or 2013, 2014 to 2017 elections to 2022, the demands of this clamor basically are more or less repeated calls and cries. But if you look at the national level, where the National Assembly members and the senators of parliament sit, they make demands or they make clamors and there is action. So they are being taken much more seriously as opposed to county assemblies. And that's largely because Kenyans are asking critical questions where they expect that their representatives at the very devolved level, which are the MCAs, are going to be responding to these questions, but the answers are not forthcoming. Why? Because even at the public participation processes, and we have followed some of these processes or platforms very closely, you don't get MCAs who will be debating as competent as my good friend Chege is telling us that SRC expects that you get competent, highly qualified. You don't get people who will really respond to your question in the manner that will make you feel comfortable and competent. Now, the way in which MCAs get into office is an elective process. You are either elected or you are nominated. So you give Kenyans, or Kenyans get the kind of leaders that present themselves, and if the leaders that come to the fore don't meet that threshold and the demand, then of course there is going to be an aperture, and that aperture that we get is a cry by MCAs. So Kenyans are looking for effective, efficient, citizen-driven processes, service delivery mechanisms that are going to respond to their questions. And if MCAs can be able to do that, particularly to ensure that the legal environment or the context to do business is effective, you have proper mechanisms that support even on-source revenue generation at the county level, then you can go to the governors and tell them, we have helped you raise a lot of money. In fact, you have surpassed your targets. Why don't you also consider giving us maybe an affirmative action fund, which is something that I actually like, as opposed to crying to increase, crying, not crying like crying for shedding tears, but that noise around increment of salaries, which the way we have seen conversations within different stakeholders taking place especially for MCAs, I don't think it will be taken seriously.
All right, and you talked about crying, and you pointed at Robert. Robert was recently accused of reducing somebody to tears before he was told he can't sit for four sittings. MCAs are on a long recess, Nairobi County. They come back in June, right? June. Okay, so 6, but you won't be going back until, is it? Yes. All right. As I mentioned, we do have Dr. Conrad Bosire with us. What legal minefields, if any, are we looking at where the Ward Development Fund is concerned?
Okay, thank you very much, Olive. Maybe before I respond to that, just to say that we are not detached from the actual legitimate concerns that the MCAs are raising on the program. Actually, one of the things that the County Assemblies Forum has been pursuing is an amendment of the Public Finance Management Act to ensure financial autonomy of the county assemblies. And these are very legitimate grievance from the MCAs because of issues of oversight and just competition between the two arms of government. That amendment allowing AIE or authority to incur expenditure to be resident within the county assembly and some mechanisms to ensure that there is that autonomy and that the county assemblies do not depend on the county executive member for finance and disbursements to county assemblies, such that that separation between the two arms of government at the county level are respected in all aspects, including and most crucially in the financial resources. Coming to oversight, yes, of course, good salaries will attract people to run for office, but we know that sometimes these political processes do not yield the best. Kevin just spoke about that. I don't want to repeat that. But just a point to add, beyond the MCAs themselves, even if you had genius MCAs, they would need serious capacity and backup in terms of technical teams to analyze documents, prepare information, which then they can use for purposes of oversight. So the County Assembly Service Board and its facilitation to hire employees and build capacity is important. It all speaks to adequacy of resources that go to county assemblies. I wanted to just add my voice on that. But now going to the Ward Development Fund. You've mentioned the CDF, and I just want to make two distinctions between the CDF and the Ward Development Fund, or the debates around the Ward Development Funds. The CDF preceded the Constitution of Kenya 2010. At that time, we didn't have the county governments, and CDF could actually fund any local projects. But now with the division of functions between the two levels of government, there are functions which have been allocated to county governments and functions allocated to national government. And one of the constitutional challenges that we had in the post-2010 era is when CDF, which is basically patronized by members of parliament at the national level, funding projects or activities in areas which are actually under the county governments. And that goes against the spirit or the scheme of division of functions in the Constitution. So CDF had that baggage. And that is why, as you said, the NGCDF try to differentiate this. And actually, if you go through the constituencies, you will find they try to fund two main functions, police stations and education, trying to make it distinct from water, agriculture, health, and all other functions which have been given to county governments. The other issue is that of separation of powers between the legislature and the executive. And that is very important in the design of the Ward Development Fund. At least it doesn't have that baggage. There is no, I hope there is no propensity by MCAs to fund what are essentially national government functions. There's more than enough to be funded by the county for the county government functions. So there won't be that tough competition between the two levels. So that is the second distinction with the Ward Development Funds. But more importantly is how they play this between the roles of the executive and the roles of the county assembly. I looked at the guidelines which were developed by the Control of Budget on the use of the Ward Development Fund. And basically what they are trying to do is to separate planning and execution of those functions, because development planning, execution, audit, and the use of public services at both the national and county level is a constitutional preserve of the county executive. And the design the establishment of the fund, the running of the fund, disbursements of the funds, audit. Those are county executive functions, and that is a constitutional prescription. Maybe what could be done, and what has been done in some counties which have passed the Ward Development Fund or entered into arrangements through the allocation of resources every year, is that they allocate funds to essentially projects at the ward level, and the MCA takes charge, not in execution, but in identification and allocation of funds for those projects by the executive. And then during execution, the MCA plays a role of oversight to ensure that the executive manages the execution of the funds, the projects, and that the audit, the outcomes of that project respects the views and the priorities that were given by communities in those wards. Okay. If that arrangement is clear, then we have an arrangement or a process that is above board constitutionally. But if it tinkers with the division of functions between the executive and the legislature, then you will have a problem. So actually, there's a way in which this can be done, that the objectives, which are to bring projects to the ward level, can be achieved, and that the executive performs its function and the MCA or the county assemblies perform their functions. Okay. However, as a final comment on this, is that on the planning, we need to be careful. And that is why we are talking about portions of the budget that can go to ward development projects. Let me just give an example as I close. If you say that every MCA is going to establish a hospital of whatever level, dispensary, health center in their ward, then we do not have a functioning county referral hospital in the county, fragmenting the funds into projects such that you do not even have modern facilities in the county headquarters to assist, then that is also not good. There is a propensity of fragmenting funds to an extent that you miss on county-wide projects which are also important for purposes of service delivery. There's also that danger, and that is why there's a debate on what percentage should be allocated in order to ensure that for both county-wide projects and projects at the county level, overall complement each other in terms of enhancing access to service delivery. Thank you.
All right, because naona muda kidogo inaweza tupatia kisogo before I give you a chance to give your final remarks. But Robert, is this about political relevance, so that we see school buses branded donated by your honorable MC Robert Alai?
In fact, I think listening to the argument of the MCAs, I think this is one of the most progressive demands we've ever seen in this country. It's just that, you know, the people engaging the middle class has always, you know, looked at the seat of the MC as very junior to the level of their engagement. And that is why even sometimes you have, you know, detachment. That's why you find in even an area like Kilimani with no slum, you know, he has to go and get voters from Shauri Moyo and all other corners of Nairobi, because the middle class doesn't participate. That seat is too junior for their level. But, you know, with the example Conrad has given there, I would tell you that some of these things need to be devolved. There's a reason why health was devolved, because healthcare needs to be at the grassroots level. I come from a very big family of 25. Out of those 25, you know, my father was just a primary school teacher. We survived. All of us are alive because of one book called Where There's No Doctor. You see, in this Nairobi, the bedrock of protection, you know, keeping us healthy, is somebody called community health volunteer. You see, when you move from community health volunteer, you get to the sub-county, you know, health, you know, institution, yeah? And you find in some places we don't have any. Out of the 17 sub-counties, I think like 4 or 5 don't have any health service. And you know, sub-county is constituency. So imagine a constituency with 5 wards and no hospital. What do? You need to have an hospital there. If you go to Mbagathi, they'll send you to a sub-county hospital first because they'll tell you they're overwhelmed. The demand is too much. Yeah? And that's why sometimes we demand from every ward, at least you have a health, you know, service, public health institution. It is a very challenging also when you, the model, I was talking to the governor, you know, when still giving the examples of health, the model where every health institution, you know, every sub-county health institution is giving the same services, catering for pregnant moms, treating malaria, but is it data driven? Do we know what kills us? We have too many motorbikes, yeah? Most of these health institutions lack even basic X-ray services. We have a lot of injuries because of the fall from motorcycles. We are riding, passengers and riders are using poor protective gear, poor quality protective gear. You know, maybe the biggest killer is pneumonia. It's not malaria. You know, but we have the data. Why does it seem like everybody's providing the same drugs to us, who are sometimes, you know, so this is an argument which we can make to better. But the demand, coming back to the demand of the MCAs, I'll tell you that my best approach would be this, that let SRC, or if we get an independent body, review the service, the terms of service of the MCAs. And sometimes they need to be scaled by the counties they represent. You should not give somebody in Nairobi the same allocation for ward facilitation. You know, you give me 108,000 to have 3 employees per month, 108,000 per quarter to have 3 employees per month. That is 36,000. That 36,000. What does the government say about minimum wage? How do you expect me, yeah, to pay somebody below minimum wage when the government itself advises me on what the minimum should be? Okay. Yeah, you see. So some of these things should be, you know, aligned to the constitution, aligned to the laws of the country, and if we don't align them, then this is the most progressive. Apart from seeing, we have said just that the salary of the MPs is 49% of the president. Make the salaries of the MCAs 49% of the governor. Okay. What is so hard in that?
All right, Mheshimiwa Maura, you've been at this game, like you said, 3 times running. And many times we see a lot of tokenism. When the politicians want something, you are a politician as well. But when the national leaders, you are also a national leader. But you get my sense, right? Yeah. When they want something, they give you something in exchange, you know. Will that change this time round? Do you foresee it changing?
And that's why we are saying this. The way the setup is systematically dysfunctional and is supposed to make us not work. And that's why if we do that, I mean, Conrad talked about the WDF very well, and I even sent you the documents so that you can look at where we have those local arrangements. Why would, for example, His Excellency the President talk to the 2 speakers of Parliament, request that, you know, national government affirmative fund for women reps, you know, CDF, Senate Oversight Fund, all these things to be put in law, and you forget WDF that is supposed to be very basic and very local. That's one. Number 2, on the issue of division of revenue, it's clear, national government takes 85, counties get 15. How come 4 months into it, counties have not been, you know, exchequer releases from national government are not forthcoming? Yet it's clear, yours is 85. The little should be coming, should be clear. Give this the 85% of what is available and 15% to this. And that you will not see governors complaining. So it's systemic, and it's supposed to, I think it needs to change, and the narrative needs to change. And that's why we're here. And that's why I'm thinking it's a good thing that these issues are coming up. Media should also take a very critical role. Currently, there's a bill called the County Government Revenue Raising Processing Bill at the National Assembly. Really? A National Assembly county government? You know, why? Because they want, if Nairobi wants to raise revenue, the CC Finance needs to go and have concurrence with the CS at the national level.
This is about the one for harmonizing the inter-county taxes, I think.
Yes, and the
Yes.
issues of I think the discussion should not be you small people come and talk to us big people. It should be convergence, like a clearing house of where are the taxes clashing. You get the point? Same way, that's how national treasury should work. What's happening to the counties, what's happening in the national. Can we have a broader conversation of how it's supposed to happen? When now it comes to the counties, again, the split of the county treasury should now, again, what is the small budget of assemblies? Can they be given directly from the COB without necessarily having to pass to CC Finance? Because that thing was, the budget was passed. You know, we are going to be oversighted by Office of the Auditor General, and all those processes are going to take place. So these systemic ways of making this thing dysfunctional is wrong. Let me give you a final example. If you look at the office of, say, the governor, vis-a-vis the office of the speaker, who is the highest person in the assemblies, and you said rightfully I was once a speaker, you know you're given 3 key people, a gardener, a cook, a driver, right? You are supposed to be oversighting the governor, who has CCs, that's a cabinet, chief officers, you get advisors, and all these people are high level. This person is supposed to oversight you. He's getting, you even now, I don't need to be speaker to have a cook or whatever it is I want. But if you look at now how it's system, now that is the highest person in the assemblies. When it comes to the committees, it's even worse. Robert told you in public accounts. If you look at the Department of maybe Legal Services that give us support, so we're able to oversight properly. Nairobi, with 124 members, the staff is less than 5. Why? Because the CRA gave us this number of ceiling. You cannot be able to get this amount of the revenue allocation. So those systemic ways, and you do not have to give us the discussion is bigger than salaries. The discussion should be how do we help these offices accentuated so that they are able to run effectively on issues of governance and issues of devolution for the benefit of Mwananchi. Okay. And if there is a local arrangement, as Kevin is saying, that when on-source revenue is growing, we can have a discussion with the government. It's not allowed in law. Us guys are the creatures and detainees of SRC. So that discussion cannot happen. So we need to relook at the architecture of how we wanted the county governments to work, and especially the issues of governance with relation to oversight. And that is why it will be very difficult to have a very clear civic engagement. Because like now, with in our committee, we have like 12 reports that we need to work on. You can even do public participation, even for us to be able to get money for doing report writing for those committee reports so that we can even table them. So, and by there, they are time bound. It's a problem. Why? Because we've been given ceilings by CRA that you cannot spend about this much. If you look at the office of the leader of majority at the counties vis-a-vis leaders of majority at the Senate and Parliament, it's different. That's why Duale write a good book. He had all this support. Go to Aaron Cheriot's office. You find he has a legal researcher, fiscal analyst, all these guys who are supposed to support that office. You know, a level, you're just given a key and a small office. It's been real. It doesn't work. And this is a person you want to command the respect of the county and to be able to take government to task. It doesn't work. So for me, you asked very well that I think we need this conversation. As media, we need to continue having this. The earlier we finish up the PACS issue and terms, the better, so that we now get to the issues that county governance want us to do. And we are able and we are very, very capable of. Okay. But it needs a conversation that needs to keep on going. Article 2 of the Constitution talks very clearly, and I wish Conrad had a chance also to talk into it. It says, hey, you shall be the country is going to be governed at the national and the county. This says this is not a sub of this. Okay. Yeah, but when it comes to how it looks, finally, Robert talked about there's a small relationship between the PACs at the national level that does not happen in the county level. Why? Thank you.
All right, Kevin, last word?
And that's where I pick it up. Some of those PACs are like the 11 affirmative action funds that we have. And so that I clarify that when on-source revenue, when you enhance on-source revenue as a county assembly, a conversation can take place. That's what I'm saying. And so you engage with the CEC as an institution, and you say, we have been able to do this, and part of the challenges we have engaging with our citizens. For example, you talk to MCAs and they tell you, we give our monies on WhatsApp for funerals, for weddings, for schools, for all these things. You don't have to do that when on-source revenue has been enhanced. Within the county assembly, you can create a mechanism because the constitution empowers MCAs to make laws that protect service delivery at that particular level. And if affirmative action, like now they're proposing affirmative action for nominated MCAs to do what with the money? Make it an institutional mechanism, not to, rub nominated MCAs back so that they can also be able to carry a vote and the populace of nominated MCAs around your clamor and your demands, but make it meaningful so that citizens who are questioning why you need more money can be able to feel that that money actually is for our service. And through that, you'll begin to see citizens even petitioning SRC. And as Kevin Osido, I can be among the people to campaign for SRC to increase resources to county assemblies. But if I don't touch it, I don't see it, I don't feel it, where is the oomph? Where is the motivation? Where is the fire? It is not there. And that is purely why I agree with Dr. Conrad that we need to build the capacity of MCAs. Mheshimiwa Lai has responded to so many of the questions that is actually asking within the demands. When you add salaries of MCAs, it doesn't mean that healthcare is going to be better. Already, healthcare or health service delivery has been budgeted for in the county assembly budget through what is called the County Integrated Development Plan, where the MCA sits at the apex of this process through public participation and the tail end of it, which is appropriation. The MCA can ask, why did you give us little money on healthcare, whereas we have mothers dying in hospital? Reduce roads, because we don't need very good roads around here, and then increase on healthcare. Why do you have more money on this, yet we have children who can't go to school? Reduce on this and increase on education, especially on ECD and others. So even as he's talking about where there is no doctor, increasing the salaries of MCAs will not make healthcare better, but engaging in mechanisms where you will have increased budgetary allocation, which is appropriated by MCAs, will be much more better and meaningful. Even for community health volunteers. I'm glad that for over 6 years now, CHVs of Nairobi have been crying for some allowance and per diems. Nairobi County is now issuing, even without the increment of salaries for MCAs. So I think we need to narrow down the conversation into, yes, exactly, widen it, so that we also look at ourselves as MCAs, what is our contribution? And then how can we be able to now use our local mechanisms to get what we are getting? But otherwise, I think that given the kind of history that we have had, sadly to say to Kenyans who are watching us, if the political precedents were to take place, then MCAs will get what they are asking for. And that might not happen within the 14 days, but we wait for 2027.
All right, Robert, I know there's something you would like to respond to.
I'm not responding per se. I'm just trying to clarify that, this is why I want him to read the substance of the argument. The argument there is very deep, deeper than salaries. He's so focused on salaries. He doesn't see the World Development Fund. And that World Development Fund caters for the health, trade. There are 12 devolved functions. CDF caters for 4.
Yeah,
police station, chief, education, na barabara. 2. Lakini, you see, 12.
Let me, can I come into this? Now that you're saying we need to widen and broaden the conversation,
yes.
I will plead with you guys to come on AM Live one of these fine days to take this conversation further. Yes. For now, muda the time has run out for front and center. But I want to thank the gentlemen who have been with us here this evening. We have Dr. Conrad Bosir, who's joined us very kindly from Naivasha. We've also had Mheshimiwa Robert Alai, member of County Assembly for Kileleshwa. We've also had the Secretary General County Assemblies Forum, as well as the MCA for Ngara Ward, Kevin Osido, who is the ED Executive Director, County Governance Watch. Thank you very much. And I know where we are picking up this conversation next time is there's some who say the only development they feel is from CDF. There's a report I shared with that was penned by the Standard about a control of budget report that said in 20 counties there was no development. Is it budget or development? I'll need to clarify. So will the Ward Development Fund then make you feel devolution. That is where we pick it up from next time. Have yourself a good night.